What's the
Okay, so this is the dialectic class for November the 4th and the 3rd, in case you missed it. Okay, yes, Addison.
Is this tape?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Okay,
Just go for it.
What's the difference between effect and effect?
Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, so her question is, what's the difference between effect and effect? Does anybody know? Yeah, Colin, what do you think?
Okay, so the second one on the bottom, effect, is like if you leave an apple out in the sun, it'll rotten, and that's an effect on the apple.
Okay.
Or that's like how it affects the apple.
Okay, and then what does this mean?
That one would be, oh wait, I think I said it backwards.
You know what, I like where you're going, but you are on the wrong track. Yes, what do you think?
Effect is like something that happens to it, like...
I think you might be on the right track.
Like an effect, it can be like on a video, you add effects on it.
Okay. Then what would this mean?
Effect is what happens if you were to do something to it. Like, what if you affected it with...
You know what, I'm going to tell you. This is a noun and this is a verb.
Okay.
It's that easy. So the way to remember this is, I always think, what is a word you often put in front of a noun? The effect. You see? Okay. But it's not the effect. Okay, so yes, I put a special effect on my video game, okay? When I press the button, it affected my video game. It's a verb. So that's the difference. And you know what? I see that it doesn't show up very well. So I'm going to just grab out a brand new black pen. Maybe. Does anybody else have a question about your paper? For some of you, I think, Neil, I said for you that it might have been good to have more of a closing sentence. And we're going to work on that. That's not something I really mentioned, so don't feel bad about not putting that on. I'm not looking for perfect papers or anything like that, so please don't worry. But if there's something I corrected on your paper and you don't understand, I want to know. Yes, Christian?
Do I know something?
I want to know something.
On every Halloween, it's super cold, but this Halloween was perfect temperature, and we didn't even go trick-or-treating.
I know, isn't that a bummer?
We went trick-or-treating for the first time this year. We always have trunk-or-treats.
You know, I noticed when we were driving in here that I was coming from this direction, and there was a sign on a post, and it just said candy with an arrow pointing left, and I turned. I mean, it was where I was going to turn anyway. I'm like, oh, who wouldn't turn at the sign that says candy? But I didn't find any candy. I think maybe that's done. All right, so go ahead and get your reading questions out. Colin, I'm just going to move this stuff because you're kind of scrunched a little bit. And I've got room over here, so how about if we do that? We are talking now about the Peloponnesian War. Let me get my map. Turn this way. You know what? You guys can get your maps out too, because we're going to add a new town to our maps.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. All right. I don't know how well that's going to come out on the video, but it's got to be better than nothing. Sorry, but it's got to be better than nothing. Let me give you a moment to wrestle. Oh, the one that is Greece. Yes, the one that says ancient Greece. That would be the map to get at.
I think we already put Peloponnesian.
Yeah, we did put the Peloponnese on. Just to remind everybody, the Peloponnese is the blob here. So what I want us to do is put Corinth. Do you see Corinth? Do you see the isthmus? Did we talk about that last week? That's called an isthmus. This isthmus, and then right where it branches out into the Peloponnese, there's a dot, and that dot is Corinth.
It's on top of Mycenae.
Yes, right above Mycenae. And you might not have, if you need to just put write it out somewhere else and draw a line. It's fine. Since our reading talked a lot about Corinth, what do you guys know Corinth from?
The Bible.
Bible, 1st and 2nd Corinthians. Paul wrote at least 2 letters. We think maybe more than one, from the way that when he's answering questions that they've asked. We think there might have been a missing letter, but we have 2 of his letters from Corinth. This is called the Isthmus of Corinth, and this is called the Gulf of Corinth, or the Corinthian Gulf. And when I went to Delphi, I got to stay right there, and I could see the water. Anyway.
I have a question.
Yes.
If there's like the isthmus and the Gulf named after it, why have we not learned about it yet? If it's so influential.
That's a good question. I think it becomes more influential in Roman times, because in ancient Greek times it was not as vital. But in Roman times, when this all becomes part of the Roman Empire, and there's lots of coming and going. Remember, we talked about that often. Ships would come in, and eventually there's going to be a canal through here, but there's not. So they might ship goods across it to ship, or else they don't have to go around. It became more of a center of activity. But that's a really good question. So in Dorothy Mill's book, here we go. Can somebody tell me what the first question I asked you was?
Where did Pericles
Pericles
get the money for the many projects in Athens?
Okay, and where did he get it?
From the treasury of the Delian League.
Yes, from the treasury. Okay, so we talked about this last week. Remember what's happened. 50 years ago, the Persians attacked. They attacked 50 years ago, and they also attacked 60 years ago. And they left, defeated, never to return. But all of these Greek colonies are still in danger. By the way, Samos, I think, is this island right here. There was an earthquake this week in Turkey. I don't know if you saw that on the news. And it caused a lot of damage in Turkey and on the island of Samos.
I know there was an earthquake, it said it.
Yes. But 2,500 years ago, these were Greek colonies, and Persia still exists as an empire, and they're in danger. So Athens says, we're going to be all together, we're going to all contribute, but to protect you. But then they end up taking the money for themselves. Yeah.
Is Persia a country?
Persia was an empire. Mm-hmm. Persia is now Iraq and Iran. Okay. Mostly, but they stretched a long way to the north. Obviously, to the north, they stretched down to Egypt. They'd taken over Egypt, so there wasn't. I mean, I guess we'd call it a country, but it didn't have set borders. There wasn't really a country like we think of a country.
It's like a tribe in a way.
Well, no, it was an empire. Yeah. It was a huge empire. So Athens took the money, and last week we looked at the beautiful things they built. And Dorothy Mill starts out in your book by saying that Pericles felt that it was justified. Mm-hmm. It said, Pericles knew what he was doing when he used the money from the treasury of the Delian League. To Athens had been committed the trust of defending the allied islands and cities from Persian aggression, and it was the money contributed by the allies for the cost of this defense that was kept in the treasury of the League. And here's what Pericles says. Pericles maintained that the beautifying of Athens was a symbol of her might and power, that the great buildings employed labor and encouraged commerce. In other words, it was jobs, right? Jobs for Athenian workers to build it. Both of which added to her prosperity, and that these outward signs of her wealth and might added to her ability to protect her allies. He had won for Athens the foremost position in Greece, and he was determined that she should keep it. To this end, he argued that Athens was justified in using the money of the League, because the way in which it was being spent added not only to the glory, but the security of all. In other words, Athens is a symbol of all of you, of all of us, of our power. And when outsiders look at Athens, they'll say, oh, we don't want to mess with them. Look how grand and powerful they are. When we beautify our city, we're helping all of you. Do you buy it? Addison's like, no, I don't buy it. Well, do we, like Washington, D.C., we have beautiful buildings in Washington, D.C. and monuments and things. And so that when, foreigners come and visit, we have like a symbol of our power. We have the Statue of Liberty, which was given us by France. We didn't build it. But, we have symbols of our power. I don't know. But we did not steal money from other people to build it.
And it's different because we as a country are united. They're they're all separated. They're divided. They don't think of themselves as one country.
This is true. This is
so
true.
It's more like stealing than taxing.
It's more like stealing, yes. But Pericles thought he had a point. I don't know. Like it or not, it says in the book that there were people who didn't like it. I mean, Athenians that didn't like it, that thought, certainly Delian League allies that didn't like it. And I wanted to ask you about this section. It says, Pericles was also a great lover of all that was beautiful, and he was honestly desirous that the youth of Athens should grow up in a city that should be a joy forever, that would make them good and useful citizens, and inspire them with an abiding love for and pride in her. But there is a flaw in the character of a man who holds that the end, even if it is a great and glorious one, justifies any means. Are you guys familiar with the phrase, the end justifies the means?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Addison.
It means that the goal, if your goal is good, then it doesn't matter how you get there.
Right. It means if your goal is good, it doesn't matter how you get there. Think about that. Do you agree with that? Like, say your goal is to get a good grade. You could cheat to get a good grade. Do you see? But that would not be the right means. So the end means your goal, and the means means how you get there. Unfortunately, there are people who believe, if our goal is good, it doesn't matter how we get there. I just want you to think about that.
Like an election, no.
Yeah, well, I suppose it could be. Like, say, since it's election day, let's talk about that. And I'm not taking any side. Okay, here I'm just making an observation. Say you wanted a certain candidate to win, and you really, really, you didn't just want them to win. You really believed the safety and security of your country depended on it. So I'm going to put in illegal ballots, or I'm going to steal the other side's ballots. But it's all for the good of everyone. But would that be right? We can't do wrong things because we have a right intent. We just can't. We can't do that. I know. I can hear the phone buzzing. I'm pretty sure it's not mine. I'm pretty sure it's the Olsons. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Pericles, according to Dorothy Mills, believes that glorifying Athens and making it strong is good for everyone, and it doesn't matter how we get there. Themistocles, lied to the king of Persia and pretended to be a traitor.
That's different.
He's
lying in war.
It is different. It is different. But I wanted to bring out that it tends to be a Greek character thing. Next week I'm gonna have you read about a notorious character of the Peloponnesian War named Alcibiades, who just seemed to do what he was going to do, and he didn't care how he got there. He was just, we would say, unscrupulous. He didn't care what he did to reach the end he wanted to reach. And unfortunately, this grand country that gave us, democratic principles and philosophy and everything also gives us a lot of people with this flaw, that tend to think that if my end is good, it doesn't matter how I get there. Anyway, so what's the next question I asked you guys?
What did the Corinthians accuse Athens?
Okay, we'll go around the table. There's 4 questions, right?
Yeah.
Then Addison did, Christian did the first one?
Yeah.
Addison. Okay, Christian did the first one. Okay, we'll go around the table this way. Say it again, Colin.
Of what did the Corinthians accuse Athens?
Okay, what did Corinth, actually before we talk about that, I wanted to read one more section here. It says, now Attica, just so that you understand all the terms in here. Now Attica was very small. Attica is this area. Just like this is called the Peloponnese, this little triangle is called Attica.
That's what I was wondering.
And Attica is basically Athens and its surrounding area. Okay? And as you can see, it's not a very big area. Remember the scale here. So this, it's like 25 or 30 miles.
5 kilometers.
Yeah. Yeah, the top is miles, and so it says Attica was very small, and in the days of her prosperity, the population of Athens increased so much that the state could no longer produce enough food to support the people. And it says that they were getting food from the shores of the Euxine. And I just wanted to tell you guys, unfortunately, it's off the edge of the map. But, so if, and you would see this on your Roman Empire map. If you go through here, there's this little section of sea, but up through here is a place called the Black Sea. Can you picture? Okay, so you go through, this is just like a little channel. And you go through here, and it's open. It's not very big, but it's open. And then the Euxine is the Black Sea. Where Jason went with to get the golden fleece, on the shores of the Black Sea. So it was around the shores of the Black Sea, they grew a lot of wheat. Okay, so they could go up here. It's not very far. Sail up here and get food. That's where they're getting their food.
After I read that, and then usually I read through all the questions before I start, so I know what to look for. And it said, what happened earlier in the war between Athens and Sparta to weaken Athens? And I figured Sparta would cut that off.
Oh.
Like, go up there and cut it off.
Well, you know what? It did become an issue because the fighting is going to be all around. Like, there's the Peloponnesian War isn't just going to be on the Peloponnese.
Why? It's not even a country. Why would it be over there?
Greek colonies. Because they considered a lot of these places Greek holdings because they were Greek colonies. And the colonies tended to take sides. Like, I'm pro-Athens or I'm pro-Sparta. I haven't forgotten you, Colin. So what did Corinth, Colin, you tell us, what's their complaint?
I think it was because Athens was supposed to settle in the east, in the Aegean, but instead they established their power in the west.
Okay, yes. So here's what's going on. Look where Corinth is. When Corinth gets in a boat, where do you think Corinth heads?
Where Delphi?
Yes, they go out here.
Yeah.
Right? And right over here is Italy. Not very far off our map is Italy. They deal in this side of the Peloponnese for trading. Also remember, when they sent out colonies, where do you think they sent colonies out? They sent colonies this direction because that's the direction they're headed. Athens is over on this side. They tended to head this direction. But Athens had a huge fleet now. Remember Themistocles and his huge fleet? And they're everywhere. Those boats are everywhere. So they're not just hanging out in the Aegean Sea. They're coming around and they're messing with stuff over here now. Including, Dorothy Mills doesn't say this flat out, a colony, maybe she does mention Corcyra, a colony of Corinth. Athens starts messing with, starts attacking, starts harassing. All right? So Corinth is like, if you stay over on your side, it's like two kids sharing a bed or something. Like, you stay on your side, and I'll stay on my side. Don't take my covers. Scoot over. Or it's like sitting. You would never do this with your siblings in the back seat on a long trip. They're too close to me. They're putting their toys over the center line. Yes.
My brother Aiden and I, we sometimes like to spend the night at my grandparents' house. And they have a really nice, like, it's kind of an old one, but they have a heating blanket that's electric.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And so we usually sleep over in the winter because that way we can go out and play in the snow while they still sleep. But It's a queen size bed, and so we just shared in the basement, their creepy old basement. I'm like, Aiden, now don't hog the blanket. And then in the morning, he's just wrapped up in like a tornado. I'm just like,
So Corinth says, don't hog Greece. Stop hogging Greece. So Corinth, goes to the enemy of Athens, Sparta, to complain. And in the Dorothy Mills book, we read a very, very long complaint. It lasts for several pages. But I'm not going to read the whole thing, so you can just breathe a sigh of relief. But I wanted to note something. That the Corinthians, in speaking in Sparta, they make a comparison between, hey, Sparta, this is what you were like, and this is what Athens is like.
It's kind of like a compliment to Athens.
Yes, it was kind of, because here's what they say. You have never considered, remember they're talking to Sparta, you have never considered what manner of men are these Athenians with whom you will have to fight, and how utterly unlike yourselves. They are revolutionary, equally quick in the conception and in the execution of every new plan. They do things fast. While you are conservative, careful only to keep what you have, originating nothing and not acting even when action is most necessary. Do you remember when they called them before the Battle of Marathon and they're like, oh, we have a moon festival. Mm-hmm. We can't not do the moon festival. That's Sparta. Once they get there, they're awesome. But they're slow to move. They are bold beyond their strength, very daring. They run risks which prudence would condemn. Sometimes they're unwise. And in the midst of misfortune, they are full of hope. Whereas it is your nature, though strong, to act feebly. When your plans are most prudent, to distrust them. They're always second-guessing themselves in Sparta. And when calamities come upon you, to think that you will never be delivered from them. Athens is full of hope. Sparta's, oh, it's bad. We better be careful, because it's going to be bad. They are impetuous, and you are dilatory. Ooh, those are good words. What's impetuous? How do you act if you're impetuous?
Can't think.
I know it.
You do things suddenly without thinking.
Yeah.
Like if you're driving by a garage sale and you just suddenly decide to turn in, even though you're supposed to be on your way to somewhere else.
Or like Paul Revere, he's like, the British are coming.
Yeah, except that was planned, so it wasn't totally impetuous. He was waiting out to see if they went by land or by sea.
I know there's another word for that word.
Impetuous. Well, they said daring. You do unexpected things.
Intense.
Yeah, kind of intense. And he says you are dilatory. Dilatory means you're slow. You wait. Impetuous, you act. Dilatory, you wait. They are always abroad. You are always at home. For they hope to gain something by leaving their homes, but you are afraid that any new enterprise may imperil what you already have. When conquerors, they pursue their victory to the utmost. When defeated, they fall back the least. So the Corinthians say, look, you need to understand, you're dealing with somebody completely different from you. You think everybody's like you, that everybody's going to sit back and decide, is this a good idea? Let's talk about it for a while. Listen, should we go messing with Corinth's colonies? I don't know. Let's have a meeting. We'll get coffee and donuts. We'll talk it over. Like, no. That's not what Athens does. They are impetuous. Let's do it. Let's just go do it right now. Don't think. Just do it.
I wonder what was going through their minds when they wrote this. Like, are they trying to get them fired up and angry so they'll prove them wrong?
I don't know.
Because they're asking for their help.
It does seem a little bit, I don't know, because Addison's, your perspective is that it's a little bit insulting. But to say you're slow to act.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not completely an insult. It does make Athens sound much more energetic. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking, when I was reading this, we have two proverbs, and they're opposite. They say, he who hesitates is lost, is a proverb, which means, like if you don't act, while it's in your mind and while you have the chance, you won't get the chance again. But they also say, look before you leap. All right, be careful. Be careful before you do anything. And these are both popular proverbs. Like, which one do you want? Which one are we supposed to do? So I guess Athens is he who hesitates is lost, and Sparta is look before you leap. So I don't know. I don't know if I don't think they're intentionally thinking this is an insult. Maybe they're thinking it's more of a compliment. If you think about, if you admire deliberative, slow action.
But he also said other stuff like, what was it? Like, they're brave and they're, I can't remember exactly what I said, but he said stuff like, you know, they're brave and they're,
yes,
they take advantage of their victories and stuff.
They do. They do. They do seem to perhaps their goal is to instill a real healthy fear of Athens and Sparta, like you said, so that they will act, perhaps, not to insult the people that you want to help you, but to say, watch out, because this other side, they are a formidable opponent. If you let them get away with this, they'll just keep going, and they'll just keep taking and taking. They said, if a man should say of them in a word that they were born neither to have peace themselves, nor to allow peace to other men, he would simply speak the truth. That certainly isn't a compliment. They can't stand peace. They're always stirring it up. They're always stirring it up in Athens. And then he turns to the Spartans, he says, you persist in doing nothing but let your procrastination end. All right? If you let them get away with this, it will be hard to undo it. It just so happened, though, that there were envoys from Athens visiting Sparta at the same time. Because they weren't in war yet. You know, they were still, it was tense. But they were still going back and forth. And the Athenians are like, let us have something to say. We want to speak too. I'm like, okay.
It's kind of like court.
Yes, a little bit. It's like speaking in front of Congress or something like that. You know, it's like, we know what they get to say. And here's what Athens says. We maintain that we rendered you a service at least as great as you rendered us. The cities from which you came to help us were still inhabited, and you might hope to return to them. They're talking about it at the end of the Persian War. Your cities weren't burnt down. Your concern was for yourselves and not for us. At any rate, you remained at a distance while we had anything to lose. But we went forth from a city which was no more, and fought for one of which there was small hope, and yet we saved ourselves and bore our part in saving you. If, in order to preserve our land, like other states, we'd gone over to the Persians first, or afterwards had not ventured to embark because our ruin was already complete, it would have been useless for you with your weak navy to fight at sea. But everything would have gone quietly, just as the Persians desired. You know, which is true. Athens is like, we brought the most ships. Our city was gone and we stayed. Hey, they didn't throw this in, but hey, if Themistocles hadn't kept you all from leaving, you would have
died.
Yeah, you would have dumped us, gone back home, and then Persia would have picked us off one by one. This is true. Now, the question is, though, does that then give them power over Greece? Like, we saved you and now you belong to us? The Athenians said that if the situation had been reversed, and it had been the Lacedaemonians, the Spartans, who had acquired an empire, they would have found it just as necessary as Athens to rule with a strong hand, and that they would have been even worse hated than Athens.
You have to ask, would Athens have submitted to that, though? Would they have submitted to Sparta?
Probably not, but why are people submitting to Athens now, in general?
Because they have power.
Because they kind of have to. One of the, there's a famous story early, this is one of the opening events of the war that caused the war. One of the Delian League members over here decided to not be in the Delian League anymore, which, as we talked about, was, no, you don't leave. It's like the mafia or something, gangsters, you don't get to leave. And they actually passed a decision that they were going to massacre a bunch of them. I know. And they sent a ship with the message. I don't remember if they were going to kill everybody. I don't remember if they were going to kill the men. I don't remember if they were just going to kill a certain percent of them or the ringleaders. And then the next morning they got up and they're like, oh, we shouldn't do that. So they sent another ship to, hoping it would get there first before they killed everybody. And it did. The one ship beat the other ship. And before they could do it, but they came that close to just massacring the inhabitants.
And then just starting a big war.
Yeah. I want to say it was on this island of Mitylene. At any rate, this is how they were behaving. Like they own everyone because they are because they are powerful and because they did a good service. They did do a good thing. They did save Greece. But now they're assuming that means now we own all of you.
She pointed out like what her fellow cities or something called the just.
Mm-hmm.
They turn into the tyrant.
Yes. Yes. And then I love that. I'm going to read this comment. This is just Dorothy Mills talking, but I love it. The future is hidden from the eyes of each generation of men, but the past lies open before them. And to those who read the past with understanding comes enlightenment when similar difficulties surround them. For the past shows not only the beginning and the middle, but also the end of the story. Why do we study history? Why do we study the lives of people who lived before us? Because we can see the beginning, middle, and end. And it teaches us lessons. Not that we should, history's cool too. I think history's cool. But it also teaches us lessons. There's a famous saying, he who does not remember history is doomed to repeat it. If you don't remember the bad things that happened after you do certain things, you'll make the same mistakes. Anyway, so maybe the moral here is just because you have power, you shouldn't abuse it. And pride goes before a fall, right? And maybe just because you do a good service to someone doesn't mean they owe you for the rest of their existence. Yes.
Can other cities like kind of almost ostracize the other city, like put it out of Greece kind of?
No, but they could break off diplomatic relations with them. Like they could not welcome their envoys anymore. So in a sense they could, just like we might break off relations with a foreign country. Because remember they're operating each of them as their own country. Mm-hmm. And so they might just say, we have no dealings with you anymore. I don't know why they didn't do that more, and it often just came to blows. Even long before the Persians attacked, the various cities were fighting. I don't know why they just didn't say, you know what, we don't get along. Have a nice life. You stay home, we'll stay home.
They might have had a little bit of common sense in thinking that then they would have all been divided and they could have been easily conquered. But still.
And they're all living together in a fairly small space. Mm-hmm. Remember, it's like Peoria and Rockford and Moline, all like banishing each other, and eventually it's not going to turn out well. So Pericles is still in charge when the war breaks out. Here is the situation in Athens. It says, though of noble birth, Pericles had always been on the side of the people of Athens. And during his rule, the powers of the people were very much extended. Every office in the state was filled by popular election each year. Okay, so we're having an election day today. That seems good. Great. Everybody gets to vote for everybody, and they vote every year. But what's the downside of voting for new people every year?
Yeah, I thought, doesn't it kind of just, throw your country around? Your laws are constantly changing.
Why?
Because different people are constantly coming in with different opinions. Different
people come in with different opinions. So this is why in our country a president gets to be president for 4 years. A senator gets to be a senator for 6 years. A representative gets to be in the House of Representatives for 2 years. They're our biggest turnover. Because we don't want to change everybody every year. And then Dorothy Mills goes on to say this. She says, And Athens could never be sure of any settled policy in her affairs, either at home or abroad, right? Because their foreign policy and their domestic policy changes every year. I don't know if they could re-elect the same person twice in a row. That's a good question. Yeah, Colin.
Do we know which, this is an off-topic question.
That's okay.
Do we know which U.S. president served the longest term?
I think it was
FDR. FDR
Franklin.
served 4 terms, except he died in his 4th term.
Yeah.
And then we passed a constitutional amendment saying you can only have 2 terms. We decided that's a little much like having a king.
And
You know,
they-
the same person
And
on
then
and
they
on.
said, like, why should he have the more time than our first president?
Yes. Who could have had more time,
But
but he stepped down. He's like, no, you don't, that's not the system we're setting up here. We don't want to have the same person. George Washington probably could have been reelected over and over until he died, but he's like, no, that's not the way it works. A lot of people, it's okay that this is off topic because it's election day. It's interesting. A lot of people get upset that we maybe should have term limits for senators and the House of Representatives. We have senators who have been in the Senate reelected over and over and over for their entire lives, practically. And on the one hand, you might think it makes them good governors because they have a lot of practice. On the other hand, the power stays in the same hands.
But the
And
power's being elected by.
yeah, I know. So, I mean, then it gets into a state like Illinois that always elects Democratic, you know, because of Chicago. You know, you wonder, anyway, yes.
But then
But technically, yes, they have to stand for re-election every 6 years.
But
And
then
if the
another
people-
Democrat would just step up again if we're in Chicago.
Probably. Yeah, Christian.
can like a vice president become a vice president more than like a president's term
Oh, you mean can he be someone else's vice president?
after like more than 8 years?
That's a really good question, Christian, and I have no idea. It's never happened.
I
But
was,
that doesn't mean I don't know if there's a rule against it.
I was thinking about that a few weeks ago.
That's really good. Okay, so back to Athens. So democracy, we tend to think of democracy as being a great thing, but democracy has issues. By the way, we are not a democracy, right? We're a republic. We elect the people who pass our laws. We don't vote on every single law.
Is
We
that
don't
why
all
it's
come
a-
out every time
Is that why it says in the Pledge of Allegiance?
to the republic. Yeah, we are not a democracy. We are a republic. But Athens was an honest to goodness democracy. Everybody comes out, because it's like 6,000 of them, you know, everybody comes out and votes every time. But yeah, they turn over. They're constantly having new people. The supreme and final authority lay in the assembly, but like all popular assemblies, it could be swayed. And at several critical moments in the history of Athens was swayed by sudden outbursts of passion or by the fiery eloquence of an unwise or an ambitious or self-seeking speaker. But as long as Pericles lived, the dangers of the democracy he had developed were not very apparent. Okay? Pericles was strong, and he kept things in order. However, he was not always there. And Neil, is it Neil's turn? Okay, Neil, can you read the last question?
She already knew.
What happened early in the war between Athens and Sparta to weaken Athens?
Okay, and what was it?
Like a plague broke out?
The plague.
The angel of death surrounded them.
Yes. So remember something that they did with their money, in addition to building the Parthenon and all those beautiful buildings, is they built walls around Athens, and they also built walls all the way down to their port. It looks like Athens is on the coast, but it's actually a few miles away. And they built walls to surround them. Yes, Christian?
Why did they have to call it the angel of death? Couldn't it be called a curse or something else?
Well, I think she was just trying to be eloquent. I think she was just being frilly in her language. I don't think she literally necessarily meant the angel of death. I think it was just she was writing pretty. But the plague broke out. And here's why. Sparta, she said, here's the thing. Athens, super good on the ocean. All those boats. On land, against Spartans. Spartans, super good on land. Boats, okay.
They're opposites.
So they're opposites. So Athens didn't want to just march out and say, let's just fight it out, Sparta. They wanted to kind of pick them off with ships and weaken their allies and their colonies and things. So they wouldn't come out of their walls. And Sparta every year would come to Attica and just like burn all the crops. So remember, not everybody in Attica lives in the city. So the farmers and things would all come inside the city, and they have these long walls. So imagine it's like a camp set up in these long walls. Like people are pitching tents. It's like a camp for the homeless or something like that. You know, they're pitching tents and they're just living out just so they can get inside the walls and be protected while everything's getting burned outside. But what happens? We know that what happens when people crowd close together. And back in the ancient world, they did not understand about germs. Diseases broke out, all right? Because they didn't know about washing and things like that. And plus, where are they going to wash? They had no showers and bathrooms, you know. And so disease broke out. And it took out most of Pericles' family and then eventually Pericles. Now, we don't know what would have happened if Pericles had lived. But after Pericles died, they got a guy named Cleon. And Cleon was more of a impetuous, all right? He was more of a rabble-rouser. Let's just go beat up those nasty, dirty, rotten, Spartans. And he led Athens to possibly make some bad decisions in the war, all right? So that's part one, the breaking out of the war. And like I said, they're fighting all the way up here. Battles are happening on the coast here. All the coast of the Peloponnese is being harassed, battles over on the islands. And remember, Sparta, you've got these Delian League people who wanted to get out of the Delian League. And now they're going over to the Spartan side. But then Athens goes over there to punish them for going over to the Spartan side. So that's why battles are raging all around the Aegean Sea. This war is going to go on for about 30 years. However, I think at the end of your reading, it talked about, Nicias. And Nicias he was very moderate. He was more Periclean. And he engineered a peace that was supposed to be, I don't know, it was a 30-year, 20-year truce or something like 50-year. It did not last. Yeah, Kristen.
So, like, about the Delian League, was it like a plot to get their money? Or?
You know, I don't think so at the beginning, Christian. In fact, I don't think it was ever a plot. I think that when they put it together, they really meant, we have to do something to protect the Greeks from the Persians. And the best way to do that, we're going to have ships and men and money. So how about if we all contribute? I think they really meant it. Yeah, what were you going to say?
And also, does anyone know what that plague was called?
The plague?
Yeah.
No, that's what they call every infectious. No, probably not. They call every infectious disease that breaks out and is highly communicable the plague in the ancient world. The Black Death that took out a lot of people in the Middle Ages, they say that it killed a third to a half of Europe. It was called the bubonic plague.
My dad said that the Middle Ages plague was worse than coronavirus.
Oh, coronavirus is nothing compared to the past.
If you got it, you died.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you got it, you died.
Wait, what's worse, the Spanish flu or the coronavirus?
Well, I don't know. At this point, I guess more people have died of coronavirus, but you also have to remember we have more people living. Mm-hmm. Also, we tend to not be in very good health. Most of the people, this is Mrs. Ferguson's opinion now. You can disagree. This is not my teaching. This is my opinion. Many Americans are not in very good health. We are overweight. Not we in this room, but do you know what I mean? We as Americans, we have a lot of diabetic people, and those tend to be the people who die of these things. And we seem to be having more and more people
That's what they say
like that. So, it's not good. I don't want to pretend, but it's not the plague. We're talking about, like Addison said, if you get it, you die, and it wipes out, maybe 10, 20, 30% of your population. We're not even
there yet.
And we're not even close. We're not even close.
Right now.
Yeah. So I don't know what the population of the United States is. If you say that, I don't know, like I don't know what 230,000 people have died in the United States or something like that.
It's
But it's probably like not even 1%.
1.2 billion people or million people have been affected by it.
Yeah, but affected. We're asking who dies.
Got
you know.
tested positive.
But
Well, yeah,
just
but the
which-
more tests we do, the more
Yeah.
positives we get. If we stopped testing, we wouldn't have any cases. You know, we just have people that were sick.
This is true.
Trying to say-
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
but-
Well, we'll move on from the coronavirus. But so for next week, I would like you. Let me get your reading questions. I would like you to finish chapter 16. We're going to meet. Okay. Well, for some reason I only have 3 of these, but I don't think that means I only have 3. I think it means I didn't pick up one. There we go. We're going to meet a character named Alcibiades, who's kind of shifty.
Do you want our?
Oh, yeah, I will take your reading questions for this past week. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I think I got that the second one wrong because that coin thing was confusing.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. And sometimes you guys write things and it's not necessarily wrong, it's just not what I was going for.
Yeah.
You know, there could be more than one.
Wait, so
question.
who's that person's name?
Alcibiades.
Alcibiades.
You're going to meet him right at the beginning of your reading, and he's a piece of work.
Wouldn't it be a funny coincidence if literally the first word of the next,
It
Alcibiades.
would be. I think that it's the name of the next section. Okay, now we all have to find out.
Let's see.
No.
Oh, no, but there's, oh, it is. 3, Alcibiades.
Oh, that's a chapter name.
Yeah. All right.
What's the first word?
The.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
The person.
Sorry to disappoint. Okay, so we have been reading till we have cases. And last week I asked you to we started a list of yeses and nos on the question, does Orwell love Psyche? Okay, let's see how that shows up. Not real great, but
I think it's because of the sun.
it's partly because of the sun. It's, you know, you can kind of see it. Let me
Maybe
move it a little closer.
Or like maybe bend it a little bit.
Hold on, you who are watching. Okay, that's not so bad. No, it's fine. You don't need to do that. It's fine. It's just its distance and its thickness of the thing, but that's okay.
They're social distancing.
It's got to be better. Yeah, the camera and the board are social distancing. So we talked about, first of all, that when we want to find ideas, and this is not just for writing papers. This is in general. Like if you want to make a decision about where to go on vacation, or we have to search our brain for pros and cons, right? We always do this, no matter what the question. And we call that process invention. Invention simply means finding. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, Addison, what did you want to say?
Is the goal of this to find whether she does love her or not, or is it to find the different ways that she does love her and doesn't?
The second one, but it's going to lead to the first one. Because we're going to pick a side. But before we pick a side, you know how sometimes we try to make a decision about something, but we've already made up our minds before we really think it over? And you know how you can sort of make up reasons to do what you already wanted to do? Don't we all kind of do that? We're trying not to do that here. We're trying to, with an open mind, say, let's really look at what their relationship is like, and write down all the reasons on both sides before we make up our minds. Now, what we also talked about last week, and Christian got his invention paper out, we have ideas, places we go in our brains to ask our brains questions, that the ancient writers, ancient professors of rhetoric called the common topics. And topic just means place to go. And the first one we are looking at is definition.
What is that? What is that I'm discussing?
What is it I'm discussing? And in this case, we're discussing love, right? And so we talked a little bit about love. what, because we use love in different ways. I love pizza, I love chocolate, I love God, I love my dog, I love my husband, I love my children. I don't mean it the same way. Please don't. I hope I don't feel about pizza and chocolate the same way I feel about God. And I really shouldn't feel the same about my husband and children as I do about God. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But more than I feel about chocolate and pizza, definitely. The hierarchy there. So, did you guys think about this? What is love? What's the definition of love?
Can I say something real quick?
You please can say something.
When you asked that question, I think you asked it last week too. It reminded me of the Fork Answer Question thing on Disney Plus.
Yes,
the shorts.
Question.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not familiar, unfortunately.
Well, he's like, "What is love?" And he asks a bunch of questions, and they're really boring. But my siblings like them.
Was it helpful for this in any way?
No.
Oh, okay.
The one I like
All
the
right.
most is probably what is money.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what is love? And hopefully we can come up with better answers.
Here.
A strong emotion towards
Okay. Yeah. And Christian said last week a strong emotion, but we also talked about the fact that hate is a strong emotion. What kind? Strong emotion.
A good emotion.
A strong good emotion towards
Someone or something. Yes.
someone or something. This is a good example of making definitions. We're gonna not stick just with this definition, but I want to look at this because one way we define something is what group does it belong to, and then how is it different from all the rest of the group. So
it's like and love.
So group different. All right. So imagine I wanted to define what is a dog. Tell me.
An animal.
It's a mammal, and how's it different from all other mammals?
It's cuter.
Well, it's a matter of opinion.
There are many
tame?
breeds of them.
Okay, so it's domesticated.
It
Now
can.
It's not only a mammal. It's a canine.
Canine,
It's a canine mammal that is domesticated. If we wanted to
many types of breeds.
define starburst. Okay, I'm not going to write starburst here. What is starburst? Starburst, what group does starburst belong to?
Candy.
It's candy. How's it different from the other in the
It's
group?
square size.
It's square,
Gummy.
chewy, and fruity.
You know what my brother always does with Skittles and Starbursts? Whenever he buys like a package at the store, if we go to the movie theater, we're those type of people that smuggle candy into the theater for a cheaper price. Say we do something like that, he always gives me the candy. He always gives me the yellow and orange ones. He gives me the citrus ones. I'm like, no,
I don't.
Citrus doesn't work.
No, I don't eat it if it's not chocolate, so we're good. Okay, so what is a sweatshirt? A sweatshirt is
Clothing.
It's an article of clothing. How is it different?
It's
warm.
It's warm.
It's warm and it
hoodie.
covers your top half and
your
it's
head.
long sleeve.
So is a long sleeve shirt.
Okay, long sleeve shirt
There's a coat. There's a coat.
that is warm and often has a hood and is thick.
Zipper.
It's warm and thick. All
Like
right.
this?
There's
Do
no
you write
zipper.
this- do you need
See,
to
I
write
don't
down the
feel
love?
I don't feel like that's a sweatshirt because it's kind of slicky. You know what I mean? It's like an exercise.
It's like a exercise.
Okay, so anyway, no, you don't need to write any of this down. So the point of this is that often when we're trying to define something, think about what group it belongs to and then how it's different from the rest of the group.
That's like a
So
jacket.
that's kind of what, all right, Colin's demonstrating his sweatshirt. So it's a strong emotion, but then we have to differentiate it from like envy and hate and all the other strong emotions. So,
love.
okay.
Or like and love.
Like and love. Well, we're not gonna go there because that's kind of a. We're gonna pursue love in another way.
Yeah.
So, I have a good strong emotion towards chocolate. I have a good strong emotion towards pizza. So I feel like we're still not.
Maybe
if we
a
want to
special?
differentiate.
Someone
You know,
particular.
Chocolate is special, Christian. Yes.
You know, sacrifice and trust.
Okay, so we take it to another level where there are attributes of love. We sacrifice
We're willing to give
for
ourselves.
the other.
willing
Yes.
to give yourself up for something.
I'm
Yes.
gonna do all my chores to have some candy.
Here, come back to me, guys. What do you remember 1 Corinthians 13? Are you familiar? It's called the love chapter. Love is patient.
Yes.
Love is kind. It does not envy. Here, we're going to envy. We're going to put a little. It does not boast. It is not self-seeking. It endures all things, hopes all things. Okay, do you remember this this definition?
I've heard this thing from the Bible. I'm not sure from where though. Love is not a command. Like you can't force it.
Yeah, it's not really in the Bible, but we sometimes talk about the fact that love is an act of your will.
Yeah.
It is a command, but it can't be just a feeling, because you can't command someone to have nice, warm, rosy feelings, but you can command someone to do something. So love is something we do, isn't it? And we act in a certain way. So when I asked, does Orwell love Psyche, this is the sort of love we're looking for. Okay? Not is she fond of her. All right? Although fond can be mixed up in it. So last week we started a chart, right?
Yeah.
And we said yes
To love
and no. And do you have your chart? Can you tell me some of the things we wrote down?
Takes care of her as a baby.
Okay.
Adores her, protects her,
For her as baby, adores,
Thinks she's
protects,
beautiful.
offers to take her place.
thinks beautiful, offers to take place,
Angry that she'll be sacrificed.
angry
And
about
worries.
sacrifice.
And she's worried about her.
Yeah.
Okay. Worries. Is that what we put for yes?
Yep.
Okay, what did we put for now last week?
She's
Uh,
jealous.
She's jealous.
Jealous. And specifically, do you remember in what way she's jealous? What's she
doesn't
jealous
want
of?
Psyche to have secrets.
Yes,
She-
she doesn't. She hates secrets. We'll put that in there.
Needs comfort instead of giving comfort.
Yes, when she goes to Psyche her very last night before the sacrifice, Psyche ends up comforting her.
Instead of she comforting her.
Needs instead of gives comfort. I don't know how we.
She accuses Psyche of not loving her.
Yes, accuses
Of not
Psyche
loving her.
of no love. Is that where we left off last week?
But it's kind of, for the second one, like, if you are more upset about her losing her life than she is upset about her losing her own life, then it's kind of love.
It is,
Maybe.
but so she says, and I don't know if it's the reading that we just did for this past week or the week before, but she says about that last night, because what does Psyche believe is going to happen? I mean, she's a little bit afraid that there might actually be a brute, or even worse, there's nothing, and she's just going to starve to death in chains slowly, or be eaten by wild animals. But what does she kind of believe and hope for?
Death. Well, that she'll become a bride of him.
That she's going to become the bride of some god. And Orwell says, not to her, but later in the story, because remember, Orwell is telling the story. She says, I suppose it would have been good to encourage her in anything that gave her peace and hope. But she couldn't. Like, I've got to smack some sense into you and shake this out of you. If you thought someone was going to die the next day, but they had an illusion that they were just going to, go live in a palace, maybe it might be nice to say, oh yeah, your palace is going to be beautiful. Like, you may not believe a word of it, but if it gives them comfort, I'm not advocating lying in general, okay? But do you know what I mean? If somebody's sort of delusional, if you think they're delusional, my grandpa had Alzheimer's, he had Parkinson's, but he got dementia later, and he was in a nursing home in southern Illinois, but he believed he was on the French Riviera because he had spent a lot of time in Europe. His wife was Italian, and he'd been to Europe many times. And is there any point in trying to convince this man he's not living on the French Riviera? and that he's living in a nursing home. No, like let him live in the French Riviera, for crying out loud.
I think it would be kind of sad though to know that the girl that she raised basically was keeping something like that secret. That she wanted to die. Kind of.
No, it definitely hurt her. But so now we go to that love, you know what I mean? Like, it's understandable. But it's like, oh, she wasn't willing to put the good of the other ahead. So we move on to what you guys read this past week. And unfortunately, I used all the same color of little flags because I wanted to do, remember why she's writing this book? What is she writing?
To accuse the gods.
She's accusing the gods. The gods
cursed her.
Yes, they have been against me since my very beginning. It's all their fault. It's all their fault. They've done all these things to me. I'm ugly, and my dad's abusive, and they took Psyche away from me, and she's the only good thing I had in my life. And all these things have happened to her. And she says, so this is a comment about love, I suppose. This is right at the beginning of chapter 8. I even thought that I might hide up there on the mountain and set her free when the priest and the king and all the rest had turned to go home. Or if there is a real shadow brute, I thought, and I cannot save her from it, I'll kill her with my own hand before I'll leave her to its clutches. Is that a love or a not love?
Well,
she'd rather kill her than...
It's a love, but it's still wrong.
I feel like willing, I mean... Yeah, but I suppose if she thought it was just saving her from a fate of horrible. Willing to save, we'll add this, to save her from brutes, even by killing her. I need to make sure I'm not running out of battery. I think it's kind of low, but I'm pretty good. We don't have that long to go.
Are you going to record for Latin too? Or
no, just this class. But she can't go because she's not well.
Oh.
And she misses the whole thing. She wanders out onto the steps, but she just can't, she can't follow.
It said like she fainted or something?
She did, because she'd been beaten by her father and she was obviously unwell. It is, in its way, admirable, this divine skill. It was not enough for the gods to kill her. They must make her father the murderer. It was not enough to take her from me. They must take her from me 3 times over. Tear out my heart 3 times. First her sentence, then her strange cold talk last night, and now this painted and gilded horror to poison my last sight of her. Ungit had taken the most beautiful thing that was ever born and made it into an ugly doll. Now mark again the cruelty of the gods. There's no escape from them into sleep or madness, for they can pursue you into them with dreams. Indeed, you are then most at their mercy. The nearest thing we have to a defense against them, but there is no real defense, is to be very wide awake and sober and hard at work, to hear no music, never to look at the earth or sky, and above all, to love no one. It's the only thing you can do to protect yourself against the gods. Because you know what? If you love it, they will take it. This is what she has to say. I know. She's angry. She's an angry woman.
Everything you want turns into something you hate, or they take it away.
Everything turns into something you hate, or they take it away.
I have a question. Is C.S. Lewis using this to show the gods' faults, or the fake gods' faults?
Hold on to that thought. Why don't we wait till we get to the end and see what C.S. Lewis does with it?
Is he Catholic, or what is he?
He was Protestant.
He
never became Catholic. But he was Irish, and the Irish tend to be Protestant Irish. Protestants and Catholics don't get along in Ireland at all. It's a real problem. His best friend was Catholic, though. J.R.R. Tolkien.
And he wanted to be. That's why he wrote the story, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe Chronicles.
Possibly. Yes.
I have a comment. As my mom was driving me here, she said, "So how's your C.S. Lewis book? What's it about?" And I told her about the whole thing about her father and stuff. Mm-hmm. She's like, "That sounds like a horrible story."
Well, wait. Okay. Okay. The beginning of my recovery was when the visions ceased and left behind them only a settled sense of some great injury that Psyche had done me. though I could not gather my wits to think what it was. They say I lay for hours saying, cruel girl, cruel Psyche, her heart is of stone. And soon I was in my right mind again, and knew how I loved her, and that she had never willingly done me any wrong. Though it hurt me somewhat that she should have found time, at our last meeting of all, to talk so little of me, talk so much of the god of the mountain, and the king, and the fox, and Redival, and even Bardia. Okay, so, do you see? She, in her sickness...
Oh yeah, I wrote that down.
She blames Psyche. Yeah, I guess I'm not asking you what you've written. We'll go through together, and if I missed something that you guys added to your list, please tell me. And she's, again, the jealousy. We're going to add, she's jealous when Psyche talks of anyone but Orwell.
Do you want us to tell you now or later?
Why don't you wait as we work our way through, so I can work my way through my little flags. And then if I didn't flag something that should have been flagged, we'll add on, okay? And I may say what you said in a different way. So it's over. By the time she's recovered, it's over and done. What does she think that what is the only thing left that she can do for her?
Kill her. Oh, no. Sorry. She, go up to the mountain and either bury or burn her remains.
Yes. So, this is a very, caring for the body of the dead is a loving thing. And it's not going to be easy. She's willing to undertake a very hard journey. She's got to find somebody to go with her. She's not a horse rider. If you've not ridden horses and then you go on a long horse ride, your rear end. You've ever experienced this, you know what I mean? It's hard on you, and it's cold, and they've got to sleep outdoors, and she's terrified of what she's going to find. Yeah, Christian.
So if they bury you, could you be burnt after a couple of days? Do they burn you? Or?
Who are we talking about?
If someone buries you, do they burn you after you've been buried?
The family usually decides.
Unless they dig you up.
If they want
But do you mean today?
Yeah.
No. If you decide to be cremated, they burn you in a special place and then put your ashes in a container.
Or jewelry.
Called it.
Yeah, and they don't bury it. They often keep the urn, or sometimes people scatter the ashes, or sometimes they put them in a niche in a mausoleum. They'll have a little alcove to put it.
It just seems creepy.
Okay, so back to Orwell though. See, I love this day because I never know what we're going to talk about. It's just always a mystery. So she's willing to suffer hardship and fear to bury her, to bury Psyche. All right. So she goes up with Bardia. Bardia is the captain of the guard that allowed her to go in that last night. And they're traveling, and you know how it's been. They remember why they had to have a sacrifice. Drought, famine, impending war, and right after they sent Psyche up the mountain, what happens?
Everything.
Oh yeah, rain.
It rains. Everything changes, and of course the fox says, "Oh, it's just a coincidence." And she's like, "You mean if we just waited a few days and not sacrificed her, it would have rained anyway?" Fox is like, "Yeah, there's no connection," which doesn't make her feel any better about it. And she says, "Well, I'll ride up there and I'll tend to her remains, but everything's looking beautiful." And she says this. C.S. Lewis says this. "My struggle was this. You may well believe that I had set out sad enough. I came on a sad errand. Now, flung at me like frolic or insolence, there came as if it were a voice, no words. But if you made it into words, it would be, why should your heart not dance? It's the measure of my folly that my heart almost answered, why not? I had to tell myself over like a lesson the infinite reasons it had not to dance. My heart to dance? Mine whose love was taken from me? I, the ugly princess who must never look for other love, the drudge of the king, the jailer of the hateful Redival, Perhaps to be murdered or turned out as a beggar when my father died? For who knew what Glome would do then? And yet it was a lesson I could hardly keep in my mind. The sight of the huge world put mad ideas into me, as if I could wander away, wander forever, see strange and beautiful things, one after another to the world's end. The freshness and wetness all about me. I'd seen nothing but drought and withered things for many months before my sickness. Made me feel that I had misjudged the world. It seemed kind and laughing, as if its heart also danced. Even my ugliness I could not quite believe in. Who can feel ugly when the heart meets delight? It is as if somewhere inside, within the hideous face and bony limbs, one is soft, fresh, lissom, and desirable. Was I not right to struggle against this fool-happy mood? Mere seemliness, if nothing else, called for it. I would not go laughing to Psyche's burial. If I did, how should I ever again believe that I loved her? Reason called for it. I knew the world too well to believe this sudden smiling.
Is that on your cover? Is it Psyche or Oral? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know.
Because if it's Oral, she's not that ugly.
I don't know. Yeah.
Is his name actually C.S. Lewis, or is that his author name?
No,
It's
this is
C.S. Lewis.
Clive Staples Lewis was his name.
Staples?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I'm not his mother. Okay, so do you notice this isn't really a comment on her love, but it is a comment. She keeps blaming the gods. The gods never did anything for her. Who do you think called out to her? Oral. Look how beautiful it is. Why should your heart not dance? She's like, no. I reject it. By golly, I'm doing something sad and I'm going to be sad. And you can't make me be happy. Just wanted to point that out.
Well,
We understand it. We understand
there's so
it.
much thing. If we just look at everything that, they believe the gods did, it really is horrible. They
Yes.
use their power, they're tyrants, and they...
Yes. But something calls to us sometimes. And we can receive it or not receive it. So she gets up on the mountain. Bardia is very nervous because nobody goes over on that side of the mountain. It's the place of the gods. And what does she find?
Psyche.
And is she in her bones?
Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah.
She doesn't find anything, just the chains.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead to what you were talking about. We'll skip the chains.
Psyche in the, across the river.
Psyche is there. And how is her state of health?
Terrible.
She's fine.
No, she's fine. Her clothes are terrible.
Yeah,
Her health, however,
this one.
is magnificent for someone who's been living out in the middle of nowhere.
How long was it? Like 2 months? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
like a couple of months. It's been a while. And that everyone had given up for dead. She's in remarkably good health. Again, she doesn't look so good. She looks a little scruffy maybe. But her skin is glowing with health. And her eyes are bright. And she's like, oh, I'll bring you a cup of wine. I will bring you this sumptuous food. And it's, berries. What does... Yeah, water. But she calls it wine and gold. Well, you can keep the cup. And they're playing the game, it's roll your hands. But until she says, well, just till you've seen all around my palace. And Oracle's like, okay, where is it?
It's right here.
We're standing right next to it. You mean you can't see it? You mean you can't see it? What does Oracle think is going on?
She thinks she's lying to... Oh,
Yeah,
she's mad.
she's crazy, or
she's
some when she gets back home, the fox thinks maybe some highwayman ruffian has lied to her, and is pretending that she's and comes to her like a real human being comes to her in the night. But she tries to get her to come home and she won't go. How can I go back? This is my home. I'm a wife. Wife of what? I said, shuddering. If only you knew him, she said. You'd
Very
like
senior.
it. Oh, Psyche. She would not answer me. Her face flushed. Her face and her whole body were the answer. You ought to have been one of Unget's girls, said I savagely. You ought to have lived in there, in the dark, all blood and incense and muttering and the reek of burnt fat. To like it, living among things you can't see, dark and holy and horrible. Is it nothing to you at all that you are leaving me? Going into all that? Turning your back on all our love? No, Maya, I can't go back to you. How could I? But you must come to me.
Why is she calling Maya?
That's her nickname. That's her nickname. Apparently, I don't know what it means in Greek, but the fox taught her that was her baby name for Orwell when she couldn't pronounce Orwell, which I have trouble pronouncing sometimes. It's hard. She insists Psyche leave. Right? She accuses her of loving God more than her. I'm going to use God. We know it's not the true God, but
They're fake God.
Their God. Which one would think that would be a holy thing to do, to encourage loving of the gods more than people. It gets nasty. Their argument gets pretty heated. And yeah, they get down to in a fight. But then suddenly, in the night, what does Orwell see?
Oh, she sees the palace.
She sees it just for a moment. Just enough that she wasn't totally sure if she saw it, and she says, and now you read, give judgment. The moment when I either saw or thought I saw the house, does it tell against the gods or against me? Would they make it part of their defense, say it was a sign or a hint, beckoning me to answer the riddle one way rather than the other? I'll not grant them that. What is the use of a sign, which is itself only another riddle? Now, if they wanted me to really believe, they should have shown me something for sure. Not just half in the mist. Those gods. This is another crummy thing they did to me.
Their mischief.
Yeah, they made me doubt just a little bit. Going on. Now, again, I made a deep resolve. I was half frightened when I perceived what I was resolving. So it might come even to that, my heart said, even to killing her. Then my tenderness came over me again, and I cried, never more bitterly, till I could not tell whether it was tears or rain that drenched my veil. I even asked myself why I should save her from the brute, or warn her against the brute, or meddle with the matter at all. She is happy, said my heart. Whether it's madness, or a god, or a monster, or whatever it is, she's happy. You've seen that for yourself. She's 10 times happier there on the mountain than you could ever make her. Leave her alone. Don't spoil it. Don't mar what you've learnt you can't make. She refuses to leave Psyche happy. Right?
But she said she just said that she wasn't going to.
Well, she's not going to kill her, but hold on. All right. Yeah. Well, something's going to happen right as soon as you start reading again. Then I want to read this. This doesn't help our situation. When she goes back and she's talking to the fox, and she's so worried. And then, daughter, said the fox suddenly, I think no woman, at least no woman who loved you, would have done it. Sleep comes early to old men. I can hardly keep my eyes open. Let me go. Perhaps we shall see more clearly in the morning. This is where men, even the trustiest, fail us. What did the fox do that she finds fault with?
He wanted to go to sleep.
He wanted to go to sleep. Orwell's like, I'm upset. I'm having a crisis here. And you want to go to sleep? What? Do you see a pattern in Orwell at all? That maybe she doesn't see in herself?
She blames other people for everything.
She blames a lot of other people. And if they don't do what she thinks they ought to do right when they ought to do it, she gets really upset.
Like a temper tantrum in a way.
Yeah.
Like her dad.
She might not say it. She might not chew him out. Or beat him up like her dad.
But she does express it in another way.
So I hardened my resolution. I knew now what I must do, and no later than on the day which would soon be breaking, provided that only Bardia were not going on the lion hunt, and that I could get him clear of that wife of his. Remember how the fox had said Bardia, his wife tells him what to do, and she bosses him around. Now Orwell's angry at Bardia's wife. If I can get him away from that wife, because I have a job for him, by golly, I need him to do what I want him to do.
When did she say
To
get him away from his wife?
It says that, because the next day of the lion hunt, provided that Bardia were not going on the lion hunt, and that I could get him clear of that wife of his.
Okay.
So she's going to do something. You're going to find out what it is. Now, did you guys have anything on your list that I did not add?
Yeah.
Okay, lay it on us.
So, she was, in the, okay, one second. So it said bravery for psyche's sake.
Okay.
Sorry. And so she, in the very beginning, I noticed that she said something. I'm sorry, now I wrote them all down.
Oh, no, that's okay. You don't have to find it. I believe you,
Yeah.
too, if you...
Well, now I can't even remember. Okay, well, anyway, so there's bravery for psyche's sake, and then
Okay.
endurance for psyche's well-being through pain. So she, in the beginning, she got up, like,
You asked
after,
her, right?
Oh,
when
yes.
she was in pain, a lot of
Sure.
pain, she got up to,
Yeah.
and got dressed and stuff, even though she said she was screaming
Okay.
in pain.
Yes, bravery and endurance for psyche's sake. We'll sum it up that way.
And then she grieved very deeply.
Okay, grieved deeply.
And you already said she wanted to give Psyche proper burial,
Yes,
and I said she misses her.
misses her.
Are we doing those two?
What?
Are we doing those two?
Sure. Anything
So
you have that I didn't
you
have.
already said in her dreams or fantasies she was furious at her.
Yes.
And then she refuses to believe her and doesn't trust her.
Okay.
So-
That's good. Doesn't believe or trust her.
I put missed Psyche.
Okay.
She died,
That's big. This one seems big to me because people you love, you tend to trust them and believe them when they tell you something. I feel like that's a loving thing. Okay, now here's what I want you to do this week. You're still not writing a paper this week yet,
Uh-huh.
right? You will probably find more
Things to
things. But here's what I also want you to do. All right, can I take this away?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can go ahead.
Oh, okay.
But for the bravery thing, I think I meant that about she was willing to go up to the.
Oh, okay, that's
Mountain.
fine. Well, in both cases, she was brave to get out of bed and stumble. I mean, it's when you're in pain, it's brave to get up and
Did
be
we
in
get
pain.
a tissue?
Sure, here, I'll bring them over. Okay, Colin?
Thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you.
So here's what I want you to do. The next thing when we're planning a paper, when we get all our ideas, we have to put them in some sort of order, right? And the putting in order of ideas, we call arrangement. That makes sense, right? You're arranging your ideas.
Organizing in a way.
Organizing,
Do we write
okay?
this down?
You do not have to write this down because I have a handout for you that tells you all about it. All right? And so, unfortunately, well, we're just going to go ahead and do this. We might go a few minutes over here, but I would like you guys to make an outline for me. And actually, I'm going to give you this. And we're going to go over it together, okay? Now, your outline has 6 paragraphs. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to work on this for a couple more weeks, so don't worry, all right? And so here's what I physically want you to do this week. I want you to get a piece of paper, and you see the Roman numerals 1 through 6? I physically want you to write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right?
Yes.
And then under each one, I want you to jot down ideas of what should go in there. All right? So, I would put,
Why's it got like parotio?
I will tell you in just a minute, okay? I will tell you now, actually.
Like right there, right?
That is the name that ancient rhetoricians gave to this section of an essay, this section of a speech.
Oh.
They've been making speeches like this for 2,000 years, and it's in Latin. Those are Latin
Yeah,
words
that's what I
that
was
tell
gonna
you.
tell
Yes.
you.
So, I want you to jot down in your introduction what things will go in it. An attention getter.
Do you want us to write that down?
Well, it's actually on your paper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually on the other side. If you flip it over,
There's
yeah, that's okay. It tells you more about each of these things. Look at the first thing. It says exordium or introduction. Inform your reader, draw your reader in by asking a question. It tells you all of that stuff.
Ask questions.
Or challenge your reader to do something or use a quote. Don't do all of those. Don't do all of those.
What we were talking
Yeah.
about.
So yes. So, but right now you might not choose what you want to use. Just put attention getter.
Do you want us to bring it back once you're...
Yes. But here's what I really want you to work on. 2, 3, and 4. I want you to start making up your minds about whether or not Orual seems to love Psyche. All right. Actually, you're going to very, very quickly, something's going to happen very, very quickly in your reading that's going to tell you that this portion of the book is closing. You know, her relationship with Psyche is going to change. And I want you to pick a side. So, I'm gonna pretend I'm picking yes.
Have you picked a side?
I'm not writing a paper, so I don't, and also I know how the book ends, and so, but I don't want to say anything. But you pick a side.
No spoilers.
Orual loves Psyche, or Orual does not love Psyche.
I kind of want to say...
And so, do you remember our definitions of love? Love is patient.
Kind.
Love is kind. Love is self-sacrificing.
Love is not...
Love is not envious.
envious.
Love doesn't boast. That maybe doesn't really apply. Okay, I'm going to take actually these three things. And I'm going to say, those are going to be my 3 points. Orual is patient.
Kind.
Orual is kind.
And
Orual is sacrificing.
self-sad.
And now, here's what I need to do. You know those charts you made?
Yeah.
Those lists, those huge lists? Go through your list and find things that fit. Orual is patient. She cares for her as a baby. See, I'm writing down these points. I'm going to put a 1 here, actually.
Takes care of her.
She
misses her whenever
misses her. Well, that's not patient. That's more of a kind, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, let's put a couple, and we can sort out. Okay. She
takes her
she
place
endures to get up
into
and see her. She travels to the mountain. She let's see. When is she kind? She
Which one would be the one when she would take her place?
that would be sacrificing.
Yeah.
Willing to take her place. Do you see what I'm doing here? I don't need to do all of it. You see, picture it. You're sitting here with this list. And you're saying, what is love? Okay, love is patient. Do I see instances of her being patient with her? I'm going to jot some of those down. Now, am I going to use every single thing on my paper? No, because it's way too much. But, do I see kindness? She worries about her. You know, that's kind, to be concerned
angry
about.
that she's going to get sacrificed.
She's angry that she's going to get sacrificed. So you're going to make an outline, and this is the main part of the outline you're going to do. All right?
That's the most
All right.
you want us to do. Like that's the main
Yeah.
part.
That's the main part. And then actually we're not going to do
The conclusion.
we're not going to do for this paper. We're not going to do number 5, the refutation.
No. Do you want us to do the conclusion?
Yeah.
You want me to like mark that out or something?
Yeah. Well, just
Well,
Yeah.
you give us.
yeah, cuz we're going to do it later, maybe with pencil. I'll remind you next week. We're not going to do the refutation. So here's what you're going to do for me. You're going to go home, add anything else to your list that you think should be added.
What are we gonna read?
Just a second.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to make an outline. Now your introduction and conclusion are just going to have, backstory, attention getter. You don't have to put those down. But this is what I want you to do. I want you to bring this to me next week. I want to see it. I want you to pick 3 aspects of love. And either, if I'm arguing no, I will list ways she's not patient. It doesn't have to be patient, kind, and sacrificing, but those are good ones, all right? Show me ways she's not that.
Wait,
Do you see what I mean if
so
you're arguing the other side?
if
Yeah.
we say she doesn't love her, could we put oral is envy or
Well,
both?
how about if we pick things that love is and then we show how she's not that? How about if we stick with, if you're arguing she loves her, show how she is that?
but
And if you say that show me how she's not self-sacrificing, how she's not patient, how she's not kind. Yes.
So, sorry, when I said what are we reading, I meant like
What section are
yeah,
we
are we
reading?
gonna be reading?
Yes,
for this,
I was
adding
gonna-
this?
Yes, I was about to tell you. Yes. So I want you to read chapters 14 through 19. Chapters 14 through 19. I'm sorry we're going over, okay? Pages 154 to 225. We're probably going to be working on this paper all the way to Thanksgiving.
14 to 19.
So, but I would like you to start this outline, and we will go over it more again next week, but I want to see it. I want you to bring, it doesn't have to be fancy, just write it on a piece of notebook paper with a pencil, not fancy. But I want to see how you're doing on it, okay? All right?
Yeah.
Are we good?
So we have to write introduction. Wait, are we writing introduction right now?